Everyone, welcome to Concordia Jedi. I'm Asher.
I'm Aaron.
Happy May the 4th, although here it is almost midnight, so it will soon be Revenge of the 5th. So, hey, why not let the Star Wars celebration continue any longer? So, we're going to talk to you tonight about what Star Wars means to each of us. You know, May the 4th comes along and everyone celebrates Star Wars. Even just casual fans celebrate it. Sitting around the May the 4th be with you. May the 4th be with you. It's a cute tagline. It goes around all the time. But I think rarely do people stop and really talk about the cultural significance that Star Wars has brought. I guess I'll take you back on a little journey to a little place called Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's where I grew up. It's where I have some of my fondest childhood memories. I know I had seen Star Wars, the originals, before my earliest recollection of seeing them. But the first time I remember seeing it was at a student movie night on the seminary where I grew up and was raised. They have a very big auditorium there with a giant screen that's often used for presentations. Sometimes they show the Super Bowl there. And this is the only night I can think of where they showed Star Wars, the original Star Wars, or where they showed a movie on that screen. And it just so happened that the movie they were showing there was Star Wars, A New Hope, as it's now known. And I could be wrong on this, but looking back on it, I do believe they were using they very well may have been using Laserdisc or older technology, because I do believe they were showing the unaltered cut of A New Hope, the non-special edition. So that was my first experience seeing the original A New Hope. Or the first experience I can remember. And it really left an impact on me. I've loved Star Wars ever since. I've dressed up as the characters. I've got the merchandise. I have friends who enjoy it. I talk about it all the time. And I think there is more to it that makes me enjoy it than just the spaceships, the lasers, the sword fights, the good versus evil. I think for one thing, what I really love about Star Wars is the imagination. Of course, the original George Lucas film was heavily inspired by Akira Kurosawa's work, like The Hidden Fortress and Seven Samurai. However, the spin he took with it, the imagination that George Lucas brought, is something that I don't think can ever be truly recaptured. Star Wars is one of those once-in-a-generation things. I don't know if this generation has their thing yet. Only time will tell. But, Star Wars is one of those things that it connects with people on a global level. And it's something that's become more than a series of films. It's become a worldwide phenomena. And whether that has to do with the use of groundbreaking special effects in the originals, or the incredible characters who we've come to know and love and can name off the top of our heads. Star Wars is one of those things that is, as much as people might say so when complaining about the new films, it's one of those things that never will truly die. It's something that will stand the test of time. I've been looking. I was looking not too long ago at some old photos of me on Halloween back in 1999, dressing up as Obi-Wan Kenobi from The Phantom Menace. I can remember reenacting a lot of the scenes of Ben Kenobi from A New Hope, who was and still is my favorite character, Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then I realized, you know what? That's almost... In fact, that's about 20 years ago, I think. Well, let's see, 99. Oh, that's not 20 years, but that's still quite a long time ago in this galaxy. It really makes me look back at just how much my love for this series has developed. And, a lot of it does come down to, I like the story, I like the characters, I like the coolest weapon that's ever been put to film, try me. But I think what I also love about Star Wars is that it's very, very relatable to me. Even if I haven't been in the same situations as these characters, I've still felt the things that they're feeling and that they convey. I've been like Luke, staring out to the horizon, wanting more. I've been like Leia, looking for hope when all hope seems lost. I've been like Han Solo, always looking for an easy way out, never really finding that thing that I've been searching for until it hits me. These characters all embody different things that I think everyone goes through at some point in their life. And of course, you have to remember that this is coming from a 23-year-old who you might say hasn't experienced, the real world fully just yet. So chances are, I think my love for these characters will only get stronger. My love for this series as I grow to appreciate more the struggles of the real world. And then you got the aspect of, this is something that I grew up with, so it has that nostalgia factor to me. I think even though Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars film, the one I have the most nostalgia for is the original, because of that memory of seeing it on that screen, being there with my family, and having such a fun time watching it, and just being there the first time, letting it all sink in. I really, it may seem like I'm tired right now, but it's more a matter of, it's hard for me to put into words exactly what makes Star Wars so special to me personally. And I think a lot of it comes down to, characters, the effects, the filmmaking, but a lot of it comes down also to the themes that Star Wars has covered, from failure to triumph to redemption. It's hard to talk about something, a relatable theme that Star Wars hasn't covered in one way or another, through the films or through the expanded universe. I'm just amazed at how long this series has been going. You look back to the year 1977 when Star Wars came out, and no one thought it was going to be successful. George Lucas didn't think it was going to be successful. The only person who had faith in the project apparently was Steven Spielberg, who said that it was going to be the next big thing. Of course, no one believed him, but then it came out. It was a huge success, and you can attribute whether that's to Lucas or to his wife, who had a huge hand in editing the film and arguably making it what it was. But for whatever reason, it is what it is now. We're still going with this film series, 40 plus years on, and it's astonishing, frankly, that the stories of these characters that we've grown up with of the Skywalkers are now going to be coming to an end, presumably, in December. And it is like the end of an era. If this is truly the end of the Skywalker saga, the end of the story for characters like Luke, Carrie Fisher, Leia, Chewbacca, Lando, if this truly is the end for these characters, it's going to be kind of surreal walking out of that movie theater opening night, thinking, wow, it's these characters that I've been following for my entire life. Their story is over and it's been told. What now? Now, of course, there's going to be other films and other projects in Star Wars, but I tell you, looking at the footage we have for Episode 9, and then looking back at A New Hope and seeing just how far we've come, how much of a difference 40 years makes to a story, it really is mind-boggling. So, in short, what Star Wars means to me is that it's much more than just a series of films. It's much more than a Flash Gordon shoot lasers, defeat the bad guy series. What it has become culturally, it's become a staple of American cinema. It's become a staple of cinema in general. Anytime the talk of movies comes up, Star Wars will be mentioned at some point. Whether it's, hey, what are some of the big movies coming out this year? Or, hey, what are some of the movies you grew up watching? Star Wars, you can bet your bottom dollar will be mentioned and brought up, because it's one of those things. It's become a household name. Star Wars. You say it. If you were to say it in 1976, before it came out, those two words would have sounded so odd coming out. Like Star Wars, wars in the stars, battles, galactic evil versus good. And nowadays, those two words practically go hand in hand. And I think that's when you know that you've captured something truly special, is when you can't say one word without the other coming to mind. That's what Star Wars means to me. Aaron?
I don't know if I'm going to be able to top that 15-minute spiel.
That was it was 14 minutes and 30 second spiel. Get your facts straight.
I mean, that was
At a loss for words, I know. I have that effect when I speak.
I wouldn't necessarily go that far.
Oh, so you hated it?
No, I didn't say that. It's just because, I mean, you talk about Star Wars in that way, and just, I mean...
Brings a tear to your eye. Why don't we start with, what is your earliest memory of Star Wars?
I have two that are like around like same exact time. Is watching, like sitting down and watching. This will date me, and if you in some ways, and for those of you who don't know what this is, I'll just be like, I'm old.
I'm older than you. Shut
I know,
up.
but still, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, I still remember that."
Yeah,
but when me and my dad, when I was watching it the first time, we were watched it in release order as it should be done when you first see them on VHS. Yeah, if you know what VHS is.
Yeah, I think everyone knows what VHS is. I think most people know what VHS is. They just, when you bring it up, people go like, "Is that still a thing?"
No, there
are
several people that I know that before I mentioned it.
I have not met anyone who didn't know what VHS was. But if I find someone who didn't, then maybe I will feel old, because we were watching VHS tapes up until the late 2000s in our house, or like 2006 or 7 is when we got our first DVD player. So we were watching VHS tapes. Even after that, because we didn't have every movie we wanted on DVD, but we had a whole cabinet of VHS tapes. So if I wanted to watch the original Star Wars, it was popping in the special edition VHS tapes.
So there is that, but also along with that, because at that time you didn't have very many. You had 4, 5, 6, 1. That was it.
Yep, I remember that time.
And so, for me, knowing, one of the many different things knowing was, one, I kind of gravitated a little bit towards liking episode 1 at that time a little bit more than the other 3. But also when I found out that was made when I was alive, it was like, wait, what? That's so cool. And it was kind of, just a thing that, was like, wow. And I remember seeing, I don't remember if did I see episode 2 in theaters?
I remember.
Yes.
I did, yeah.
Yes, I did see episode 2 in theaters. And then I remember seeing episode 3. Me, my brother, and my dad, we went to see it in IMAX. And that was awesome. Now, that was before...
That would have been a great...
That was before 3D was a thing. Or it was just...
No, 3D has been a thing since like the 80s.
I mean, like...
Good 3D has not been a thing for very long.
Right. It was before it was... So,
I don't think good 3D really started until Avatar came out.
I'd say 2010 was kind of around where it really kind of...
Where they're like, oh, wait, we have to make the stuff look like it's actually coming out at you, instead of just having someone with a hand go, oh, and then having them go, look, it's actually there.
But, anyhow, I remember basically since episode 2, seeing all the, the movies in theaters. But I remember watching the films. I remember I had the old extendable toys, the ones that you could whack on a tree or a log or
whatever.
You can't break those things.
I still have my oldest one from like what was it, 2004, I think. Ooh.
I mean, and those, I remember playing with my friends and my cousins with those things. I remember just, Star Wars, I mean, I love it. I mean, I love every film. It just, when it comes to, well, lack of a better way to say it, fantasy, you know how people have their thing, their spiel, their fictional thing that they love. Because some it's, superheroes, some it's even more specific. It's got to be Marvel or it has to be DC.
Right.
Or some of the people it's Lord of the Rings. Some other people it's Harry Potter. Some other
people it's Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Marvel, and Harry Potter.
That too. There's so many different things people get in, but for me it is Star Wars, and I mean. It was, what was really cool is because, I had seen, some people having, lightsabers like these when the early stages of them coming out. But, I was like...
master replica ones. Like, with the... I think the earliest Anakin master replica from Attack of the Clones, I think that was, the first FX saber. And it had the... electroluminescent cord that went up inside instead of an LED, so it was a very dull blue, a very dim blue, but that was the earliest one I can think of.
But I remember when some of the early days of those, and because I remember trick or treating, and a father had I don't remember what it was, but it was huge.
Father?
To me, a dad and mom were dressed up.
I thought you meant a priest.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I had a Catholic priest was just running around with a lightsaber. Okay, great.
Are you saying Catholic priests can't enjoy Star Wars?
I didn't say that, but not in that context. Anyhow, but no, and it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen. And then it's like, later when I was a couple years later, it's like when I was remembering that, it's like that probably cost a lot of money. I mean, it
probably did. Those old, like I said, those Anakin ones, those are several $100s.
So
nowadays you can get a Black Series one. It's $150 if you want it bought in the store, but those ones were $250.
But my point being, then eventually when I met this crazy dude, and
when did we meet? Was that your freshman year? Yeah,
and so I had no idea there was anything to this extent. And it was
this extent
of a lightsaber, and
I thought you were talking about in terms of enjoying Star Wars. No. I never knew there was something like this. Have you seen this guy? It's scary.
But it was like
I still remember first thing you ever said to me was I just finished watching Return of the Jedi and the Nest, and I was watching the credits, and you're like, "Hey, you like Star Wars?" I'm like, "Yeah." It took me a second because I was watching it and I had the lightsabers and I'm like, you can't guess? Yeah.
No, literally, your reaction.
Yeah. God, it feels like forever ago.
Yeah, that's how we met, over Star Wars. How do you like that?
Yeah. Star Wars can make friendships, so anyone ever tells you you're a nerd for liking it, well, these two nerds are awesome friends because of Star Wars. Friends. No, it did not. You never saw that.
Anyways,
Back on track.
moving on. But
So one of our friends just walked by. Anyway.
sorry.
All right.
But
So you never knew there was something like to this extent.
yeah, and so I really wanted something like that. I thought it was really cool, and well, now I do. And who knows? Here pretty soon,
Might get it upgraded. Yeah.
Which, it's like just how cool. I mean, us fans can get to the point of. I mean, and even how accurate some of the costumes too are getting to.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to the point you can get like a lightsaber so cool, so amazing, and then have, well, I dare say, an outfit to match. I mean, I'm not necessarily one for the outfit as much unless I'm going to actually go to an event or something. Right. Then I might have the gumption to, okay, maybe I'll go buy something to.
Right.
But
yeah, I get what you're saying, but for as much crap as we give Star Wars fans, it can be a very, very toxic fan base in terms of everyone wants what they want. If you don't agree with me, you're stupid kind of mentality. But we've also got some of the greatest fans.
I agree,
ever.
But I also
have you seen like the 501st Legion and the Rebel Legion? They're a group of professional, cosplayers for Star Wars that anyone can join. You get an official card, you get a membership with them, and they do some incredible things. They go to children's hospitals. They do a ton of they show up at a ton of charity events. They were just at a Milwaukee Brewers game tonight for Star Wars. So and some of the things that this community does when we really care, I guess is how I would put it.
I mean, what I was,
when we care about like a series as much as we do about Star Wars, and we put our love of that series towards a great cause like charity, we can be some of the greatest fans.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, I think that also goes back to, well, kind of how our world is, not just Star Wars. I mean, in that, you look at kind of how people bicker and things like that happen and how great people can be and how horrible people can be. I think it's not exclusive to Star Wars. I mean, there's going to be like that for any fan base.
And for politics. But I'm not brave enough for politics. So we'll move on from that. Yeah, I think you're right there. That when a fan base gets as big as something like Star Wars, you're gonna experience the outliers, the people that just want to make it a place that only suits them. But even when you get the outliers, it's one of those things that makes you realize, wow, how important Star Wars is to these people. Yeah.
And how many people it impacts.
Right. Like I said, I've said this before, my parents grew up with their Star Wars was the original series. That's the one that they were around for. Was the original trilogy. Mine was the prequel trilogy, as was Aaron's. And now this new generation has their own Star Wars.
The sequels.
The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, Rogue One, Solo. And these are the films that they're going to be talking about. These are the films that they're growing up watching.
And I think that's what's great about Star Wars is each generation has their own.
Right. I remember a time where if I said that I liked the prequels, I got a ton of hate for it. But now that the people who grew up watching the prequels, like us, we've grown up now. We've gotten our opinions out there. We're like, hey, we grew up with these movies. We enjoy them. Now the prequels are getting looked at with a set of fresh eyes.
With a little bit more respect.
Right. And people say, maybe even if we don't particularly care for these, this whole generation did. And they enjoyed them. And now I think that's what's going to happen with the sequels. These kids are going to grow up and and then once they see the hate that the new films are getting, they'll be like, well, you know what? I grew up watching those, and I really enjoyed them. I liked them. I really thought they were good films. And then it's gonna just keep going like this. There's always resistance to new films in a series that, to be quite honest, really didn't need any other films after the first one. Now, I'm glad there was. I'm very glad there was, because we got Empire and Return of the Jedi and all the films after, but when you look at the first Star Wars, it's a really, really self-contained film. There's not a ton of loose ends that aren't tied up in it. If they had wanted to, if Star Wars had flopped, they could have just said, well, you know what? We got our story out there. May not be how we wanted it ended, but we got a film out there. We had an adventure with a beginning, middle, and end. And so it's kind of astonishing that it's gotten this far to 9 main films in a saga. And 2 spin-offs and several TV series.
How many franchises can say they can do that?
Right. I think obviously there's other film series that have even more films than Star Wars, like Marvel, and I think Star Trek does. But
I think Star Trek has more shows than
they do have
films.
They do have more films too, I think. Because let's see, you got my Star Trek knowledge is not nearly as expansive as my Star Wars, but they had, let's see, I think they had 1 to 6, and then they had some more after that with the Next Generation cast, like Patrick Stewart, and then after that you had some of the new films by J.J. Abrams. So I think even if it's just by a couple, they do have more films than Star Wars. However, not all of those films are good. Fans, you talk to any Star Wars fan, you'll never find a movie, aside from maybe the holiday special, but we don't talk about that. Never happened. You'll be like, if you talk to a Star Trek fan and say, hey, what did you think of Star Trek Insurrection, the 5th Star Trek film? They'll usually say, yeah, it was bad. We don't like to talk about that one. So they're more or less unified in that area. But when you talk to Star Wars fans, you say, hey, what do you think of Phantom Menace? You might, or Attack of the Clones, you might get a majority saying, yeah, I didn't care for it, but you will never get everyone saying, like, yeah, bad movie, bad mistake, because especially now with the kids who grew up during it, appreciating it more. I think before we end this, what do you think is next for Star Wars after Rise of Skywalker? Not in terms of where the story's going to go, but do you think Star Wars has the longevity to last, say, another 40 years?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I think they can. I think that, I think now, we have the expanded universe and, that's no longer canon. But I think, with that said, look at how much that expanded and how much stuff that happened there.
Yeah.
I think maybe now is the era of where, instead of the era of books and comics and written material and things, it's now the era of film and show.
Yeah.
And, more physical element. And I think with that said, some things from that old canon or, expanded universe can become, canon again, or revamped, or ideas taken from, or even completely new. And I think with that said, there's so much content that can be looked at and brought out. Like, for example, this is confirmed. It's not been out there very long, but one of the great things, we'll see if it's just one film, if it's multiple films, that's to be determined still. But we know we'll get at least one Old Republic film.
Yeah, so I'm happy about that. And I think a lot of other fans will be too, because I think even though we all love the characters like Luke, Leia, Han, and Chewie, we are getting to that point where people want to see us break away from the Skywalkers. And I think this will be a good step once we finish Rise of Skywalker, and that's all over and done with. Well, then we've got a whole new canvas, I'd say, to paint on. And I'm going to be honest, even if Star Wars ends up completely finishing, like no more Star Wars before the next 40 years or so, I got to say I won't mind.
I don't think that'll happen.
I don't think it will, but even if it does, because I'll still have Star Wars to go back to. Star Wars in itself will never die. It's why one of my least favorite things that I see people say is Star Wars is ruined or Star Wars is dead when they see one of the films and they don't like it. Star Wars will never die. You can go back to the originals. You can go back to the prequels. You can go back to any of the films you like. You can go back to the expanded universe. As long as that still gives you joy, as long as that still gives somebody joy, as long as they're still getting that creativity, that imagination, and that whole universe of stories, as long as they're still getting something from that, Star Wars will never die. Star Wars can never die. It will live on, and that's all I have to say about that. Anything you need to add?
I think that's a good, good, perfect thing to say.
So let us know in the comments, what does Star Wars mean to you? How has it impacted you in any way, if any? So if you like the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe below, and hit that notification bell. May the Force be with you.
Always.